just after he hit the record tonight in the United States Senate, after he crossed that 24-hour, 19-minute threshold. You saw the applause there from the chamber. He set the all-time record for the longest anyone has ever held the floor in the United States Senate. In that moment, it was a surprise, at least to me, watching it live, when Senator Booker announced that he would keep going. But the very next thing he did after he broke the record is he said that he would take a question from his friend, the senator from Nevada, Catherine Cortez Masto. And in her question, she told him, listen, Senator Booker, while you have been here holding the floor, there is a lot of news that has broken in the world, and I don't know if you have heard about it because you have been holding the floor here for now 24 hours and 19 minutes. But she then told him some of the details about the absolute bloodbath of cuts that Trump forced through today at the FDA and the CDC and the NIH and the other parts of Health and Human Services. Senator Cortez Masto told Senator Booker on the floor tonight about Trump, for example, cutting funding for something called the Healthy Aging Program at the CDC. And that, sounds woo-woo, right? Sounds something light, something that the Trump administration would certainly think expendable. You want to know what the Healthy Aging Program is at the CDC? It's all the government's Alzheimer's programs. Trump just cut them today. Trump today fired 10,000 people who work at the FDA and the CDC and the NIH, including all the people working on Alzheimer's. They cut people working on bird flu and on measles. They cut hundreds of people from the Center for Drug Evaluation. And I'm sure the Trump administration thinks, well, what's the heck's that? Why do we care about that? Drug evaluation? We don't need that. We've got AI. When they cut those hundreds of people from the Center for Drug Evaluation, that's the people who are responsible for the approval of new drugs and also the monitoring of side effects. They also appear to have completely emptied out the part of the government that regulates tobacco, because, there was nothing successful about that. We're going to have more on all of that ahead. But you should also know, to Senator Booker's point that he just made here live, you should also know that when the news of these mass firings of the nation's health experts started getting out this morning, when the word started getting out, within hours, people were lining the streets outside the CDC in Atlanta to protest what Trump was doing, thanking the workers there for their work, telling them the value of the CDC and other health agencies, telling workers there to stay strong, saying that, what madness it is to cut things like tuberculosis monitoring and prevention and treatment, the deadliest disease ever known to humankind. Senator Booker today on the Senate floor, he got emotional when he talked about the Trump cuts to the VA. He talked about the sacrifice of his fellow U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth, who was wounded so grievously in combat as a helicopter pilot for the U.S. Army in Iraq. Well, while Senator Booker was emotionally speaking about that today, we were reviewing this footage from Boise, Idaho. These Americans just outside their VA medical center in Boise, protesting Trump's huge cuts to the VA and veterans care. One sign for the many veterans who staff that VA hospital in Boise who have now just been fired. Thank you, vets. You deserve a raise. Literally, while I was listening to Senator Booker talk about cuts to the VA and how so many of the people Trump is firing from the federal government are themselves veterans, I was simultaneously on another tab in my browser reviewing this footage of people turning out in Sacramento, California, outside the VA medical center there, protesting Trump's huge cuts to the VA workforce and what it's doing to veterans' care there. Senator Booker, in his Senate filibuster, talked today about the Kafkaesque nightmare of how immigrants are being treated. People literally accosted on the street by masked agents in unmarked vehicles. People whose papers have only been secretly revoked. People grabbed by masked agents and then sent off to prisons indefinitely with no opportunity to contest the government's actions or contentions about them, with no right to defend themselves, no ability to contact a lawyer. While we were listening to Senator Booker Talking about that today in his Senate filibuster, we got in this footage of hundreds of people protesting outside the so-called Chrome Detention Center in Miami, where Trump is sending so many of the people he's been arresting off the streets. People in Florida protesting what the Trump administration admits are severely overcrowded conditions there. People crammed into cells with nothing to sleep on, nothing to sleep under. People crammed into this facility with what is allegedly inadequate and frequently spoiled food and even insufficient access to water. In Tuscaloosa, Alabama, people turning out to protest a University of Alabama graduate student, an engineering doctoral student originally from Iran, who the Trump administration has inexplicably arrested and now jailed without explanation. He has no criminal record. He's here on a valid student visa. We are expecting this Saturday, this April 5th, to be one of the largest days of protest yet by regular Americans protesting against the Trump administration and what Trump is doing to the government and to the country. But we see these protests every day.